Hello again. Today I will focus on an aspect of language learning that is usually the least popular one. I'm sure most of you will agree that this is grammar. English is not one of the languages that is known for having a very complicated grammar, but the thing that usually confuses us is the usage of tenses. A lot of people who come to us to learn English say, I can understand a lot or I understand everything, but I'm very bad at using tenses correctly. Many of them even admit that this is why they're afraid to speak English altogether. This is why I want to give you a few tips on when to use one of the tenses that is usually the trickiest for Slovenians who learn English. I'm a bit reluctant to mention its name so that I don't lose your attention completely, but just bear with me for a little while because at this point I only want to mention two examples of when it is necessary to use the present perfect simple tense. So the present perfect simple tense kind of combines the present and the past, which is a very strange concept for us because we don't have a similar tense in our language. We translate sentences with this tense either with the present or the past tense in Slovene. I don't want to go into details on when and how to use this tense, but I just want to bring your attention to two sentences that we often use when we talk about ourselves, when we present ourselves, and that can serve as useful examples that will help you remember when it is necessary to use the present perfect simple tense. So first, when you talk about where you live. So when you talk about your present situation, you can just simply say, I live in Maribor. When you talk about something that is no longer true, so something that belongs to the past, you will just add this ed ending, edo končnico. For example, I lived in Maribor 10 years ago. However, when you talk about something that is still true and you want to include the information on when this started in the past, you will use the present perfect simple. For example, I have lived in Maribor since 2001. So what is important here is that what you're talking about is still true and you are including the information on when this started. In such sentences, we often use these two little words, so either since or for. We use since when we have the information on when something started, and we use for when we have the information on the time period. For example, I have lived in Celje since 2002. I have lived in Celje for 30 years. Then similar example is when you talk about your job. So when you talk about your present situation, you will simply say, I work at a travel agency. Or if you mention your occupation, you will say, I work as an accountant. Again, when you talk about something that is no longer true, you will just add the ed ending. So I worked as an accountant 10 years ago. Now I don't work as an accountant anymore. Or I worked at this travel agency 3 years ago. Again, when you want to talk about something that is still true, and you want to include the information on when this activity began, then you will use the present perfect simple tense. For example, I have worked as a secretary since 2005, or I have worked as a secretary for 12 years. Just to wrap up, let me give you an example of a short presentation. I live in Ljubljana. I have lived in Ljubljana for 8 years. I work as a teacher. I have worked as a teacher since 2007. So Just remember these simple sentences, and I think this will help you build a firm foundation on which you can then build your further understanding of this tense and also your confidence in using it. And please don't forget that we all make mistakes in using tenses all the time, so don't let the fear of making a mistake be the reason not to use English when you have the chance. Good luck, and if you find the content of this video useful, please share it with your friends.